My mixing career went completely stratospheric when I stopped trying to mix.
Please explain. I think it's that simple, but
Yeah, I was always, you'd be trying to do something and make it sound good, and make it, be really good. It's like, this is a really competitive. I'm delivering a competitive mix that is really good, but that's nothing about what mixing is about. Not even the beginning of a part of it.
Yeah. Keep talking. I have this thing I tease people on here all the time. It's like we do these track feedback streams.
Yeah. Amazing.
And people say, like, hey, I've been writing this for a few hours. Can you tell me how the mix and mastering is sounding?
Yeah.
But it's just, I love that you're kind of deconstructing this whole thing about, like, the properness of it.
Yeah. None of it is relevant in any way at all. It doesn't matter how it sounds. It only matters how it feels to anybody ever. No one really cares. There's some I'm pretty much stand by that. Even some like great tracks, you go, even in genres which are really like sonically specific, like trap is generally fairly specifically large in the bottom end, and some aren't, and they're amazing still. And everyone goes, that tune's just a bit massive to go, but it's not as big as, it's not as, it hasn't got as fat bottom end as Mask Off. No one ever says that, ever.
Yeah.
Apart from if it's not very good, and then you're just being competitive or thinking about the wrong thing, or it just doesn't matter.
Do you have a couch you could lie down on so we can like psychoanalyze you on this point?
I'm permanently reclined.
So, like, what was the difference in your outlook that went from thinking about how things are sounding to how they're feeling? Like, because you're still listening, but you're listening to different things, right? Okay, go on.
Yeah, it was working for a great producer here who works in a very different way than me. And he sent me over his rough mix, which was basically great, like really, really good. He'd mixed it on the Neve, and I had to recreate it in my room. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh, wow. This was like, it was just like recreating his thing, doing nothing I would normally do, and basically getting to where he had left it on his Neve, which was really hard, actually, at that time, which is years ago now. Years, and maybe 10 years ago even now, and going, oh, none of this is relevant. The drums are really quiet. There's not very much bass. It's if I break it down, none of it is anything I would think of is a good mix. But you wouldn't change anything because it's all perfect. I just need to make the vocals a little better.
Are you talking like balances and that kind of thing as well, or
balances, everything? So none of this would tick a box for me as a good mix. But it was perfect. And you wouldn't change it, and it was very hard to get it. I couldn't beat any balance with whatever I did. I couldn't beat it. I could just make the vocals sit better and the bottom end be a tiny bit tighter, which is what he'd asked me to do.
Nice. And so then when you sat down and started working on records after that, like, what was different for you?
I listened to the demos religiously.
Okay.
Because in the UK, it's very different than America, actually. The demo is generally what people want it to be like, but they wish it was sounding like a record. But if anything changes, they're very unhappy. Which is why I quite like mixing for American artists who were like, it's just a rough mix, make it sound amazing. That's really cool. But less so nowadays. People, because it's so easy to make everything good. You can make good mixes really easily now. That sound great. Everything sounds good. So then I just basically just didn't think about what I wanted so much, I think.
Can I say that again? You weren't thinking about what you wanted so much?
Yeah.
And do you mean in terms of like flexing as someone with gear?
Yeah, and chops and ability to do impressive things sonically. So, and just started thinking more and more about what did the song actually need. Being much more important than anything else, and being surprised sometimes about how it wasn't something that I would gravitate to.
Yeah.
But could do.
Nice. Did the kind of like time you're spending on mixes change? Like, did you stop going down rabbit holes? How did that?
Radically.
Yeah.
Like my general mixing time now is between 2 hours and 6 hours maximum.
Is that of actual mixing or like from the second you're opening a file?
From the second I'm opening the file.
Right.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's generally unless there's always outliers. And now because I've said that, the next thing I get sent will be 2 days of misery.
Yeah. And how long were you spending on a track on average before that?
The whole day minimum.
Yeah.
and sometimes 2.
Yeah, it's funny. I went from like a day and a half to 4 to 8 hours. Sometimes if I have to like unpack something, it's more like I'm going to put it on an editor brain for an hour or 2 or something like that, which isn't mixing brain. But yeah, wild.
I'd be forcing things to be things they weren't, which is quite cool sometimes.
Yeah,
but also is generally
not
terrible idea.
Yeah, totally. Zach was just saying I'll destroy a song because I think it's supposed to turn out good. Then I get all in my head. And it's this interesting thing. I actually remember I can't remember who it was. I think, you know, when I first built my room in Montreal and I was doing like a ton more mixing, the first thing I used to do is I'd like bring up a multi-track and be like, do I need to switch out all the kick drums and stuff like that, or like start sound replacing, and you know, all these questions. And then I just saw an interview, someone who said just something like, well, if it's on the multi-track, it was probably there for a reason. And just like this whole thing of like simplifying, like what are all these things I'm supposed to do, almost like producer brain or even programmer or editor brain. You know what I mean? Thinking you're supposed to tick all these other boxes, then just actually accepting you get stuff that's got its own character, and you should really be listening to that and bringing it out.
So
you know?
I've got a few samples that have no character whatsoever. that do a function.
Yeah.
So often I'll be like, their kick drum's cool. It doesn't knock. Bang. Put in my one bass drum that I know I can just tune very quickly to go boom.
Right.
And pop about 80 to 100 hertz on the NS10s. Always, and go, and you can't tell it's in or not.
Right.
Essentially, if you turn it off, you go, "Whoa, it's up to the bass drum."
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything. So I might use that. And if I want to put that in, my brain's already put it in before I thought about it.
Right.
So, but I don't ever particularly change stuff in mixes that much.
Yeah.
I sometimes go, I will probably listen to the master track and go, "Drum's bad, replace," and that will be my entire thought. And I've already been doing it while I'm doing the rest of the stuff. Right. You know, I won't really. I'm pretty brutal now, and it's like 7 clap tracks, merge, delete.
Yeah.
You know, it's like this sounds fine, merge.
Yeah.
You know, it's like no more thought than that ever. 17 guitars all playing. They're not all playing at the same time. Various 2 parts, merge.
Yeah.
Delete. It's that much thought.
Yeah.
And then someone goes, "Can you turn up this guitar?" Unmerge, turn up guitar, remerge.
Yeah.
It's like. I just don't. I will not have a 280 track session on my screen.
Yeah. Oh no, it's crazy, isn't it? So I mean, and what I really like there as well, you're just talking about like you make a decision, you just move forward. So I guess like there's the art of not agonizing over things.
No agony, none. I hate it. And so you know, I'm a bit. I would just go to make a decision, because guess what? I can undo it really easily.
Yeah.
I mean, especially just like commit, bum. Done.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Well, I'll uncommit it and then look at what I did and change one thing and then recommit it, and it's like bang, bang. I just don't worry about that shit anymore.
Nice.
Life is much better.
Nice.
We'll not agonize about it. We'll be very, very specific and detailed if it's needed. Like mixing film score stuff is actually quite nice for one reason. 2 reasons. One, there's a temp track that is God, and they've listened to it for a year probably. So don't change anything, but make it into a record, which is a job I actually am very familiar with, quite good at, I think, mixing something so it doesn't change at all, but it sounds like a record. That's sort of a job. I can do that. I'm happy with that job.
That's some serious voodoo right there, isn't it? Don't change it, but change it.
Yeah. So I've done that. I'm happy with that job. It's not always the most satisfying, but it's cool. Yeah. And then it's never that limited, and that's quite nice.
Right.